Okay, well, that was a bit impromptu, but many thanks everyone. My name is Jason Cremins, as you possibly heard of you sat here previously. I'm the founder and CEO of Signage Live. Go, Sophie? No, absolutely. Um, we are a cloud-based, web-based digital signage platform with offices in the UK, the US, and in Singapore, covering Asia Pac. We have networks in 43 countries across the world, covering over 50,000 signs now. And what I wanted to do today really is just to kind of share with you the journey we've taken as a business, and specifically some of the new technologies that we are seeing encroaching on what I would consider traditional signage in the marketplace, so print signage. But as we discussed in the previous session, very much complementary and not a replacement technology. So I think the first thing is that change is inevitable in any industry, and having been running Signage Live now and set the company up back in '94, a long time, there's been a huge amount of change in the industry. In particular, we've seen kind of very expensive old technology, PCs, tucked behind screens, heavy plasma screens, very expensive. The return on investment was never there. It was something that was fine for the flagship, one-off location in Oxford Street in London, but would never roll out to 600 stores across a country. Or it might have been fine in a single screen in a reception area in a corporate, but you'd never see it rolled out for internal communications. Well, things are changing, and they're changing at a pace now, certainly in the last 12 to 18 months, that we haven't seen in the lifetime of our business. And what I'll do is cover some of the key areas that I see are making a big difference and a change to the industry as a whole. First is the cloud. It's a nice, friendly, fluffy name that everyone calls basically something that's on the web, internet connected. And we were fortunate, or visionaries, or whatever you want to call us, to commit to the cloud when it was ASP or hosted services. So we delivered our first digital signage web-based solution back in 2004 for the National Lottery in the UK. So you look at all the little screens you see above scratch card dispensers. Signage Live is running those, and we subsequently run other lotteries like the Mauritius Lottery, which is quite a nice job to actually go out there and do the site survey, 600 locations for them. And we could see how there was going to be a move from on-premise solutions to web-based solutions, and subsequently now called cloud. The advantages that go with the cloud and having everything hosted, everything backed up, which is a key factor from our point of view, far outweigh the need to actually have something flashing in the corner of a room. There's always going to be exceptions where you've got high security of information that you don't want to transit through the cloud, and we're starting to see a lot of hybrid solutions now where people want to maintain the data within their own infrastructure but use the Signage Live technology to actually publish the content and bring in data from other sources that isn't sensitive. So the cloud is making a huge impact on how we're delivering our digital networks now globally. Another big area is really an extension to that, but another kind of term that is fast kind of coming up on the rails really to cloud, which is the Internet of Things. And it's predicted that there's going to be 24 billion connected internet devices by 2020. That's kind of a staggering number of devices. At a technology level, the internet isn't quite ready for it. We've got to move over from one technology to another, IPv6. But it does mean that basically anything that has the ability to communicate will talk to the internet. And what the exciting thing about that is it allows us to start looking at very low-cost technologies within screens, whether they be small form factor or large form factor screens, that can actually drive digital media content. Okay, again, going back to the earlier days of when we were working in this area, everything relied on expensive, heavy PCs, and the return on investment models just weren't there for all but the very few customers that we were working with. The other big fact as well is that the cloud computing market has gone from 48 million to 150 million in the last 6 years. And that's actually 5 times faster growth than the IT sector as a whole. So you can see that kind of cloud, Internet of Things, it's not going to stop. It's going to continue to develop and emerge. And we're seeing a lot of activity around technologies now that can be incorporated into environments for print, for digital, and I want to cover some of those as we go forward. This is something that we've been involved with for a considerable amount of time now, and this is system-on-chip technology or smart screen technology. So you recall going back probably 4 or 5 years, the likes of Samsung created smart technology for the home. So you could actually plug your TV into the internet, you could pull up your YouTube channels and you could watch those on your TV without the need for any other devices. What happened about 18 months ago was the enterprise team in Suwon in Samsung decided that they were going to take the chip technology they developed for the consumer world and move it into the back of a screen, okay, a commercial screen that's good for 24/7 use, that will actually have a 3-year on-site warranty built in, etc. And they called us to a vendor briefing in the UK. We sat there with our peers. It was like playing poker because no one wanted to admit they were interested. And we left that meeting and thought, this is a really interesting technology. We want to get involved. You know, we don't make money from hardware. We make money from connecting devices. So the cheaper the device, the easier the device, the more licenses we connect, the bigger we grow as a company. So anything that kind of creates this situation is perfect for us to follow. So it took us kind of 18 months to basically replicate everything we'd built that would run on a PC, we can now run in the back of any of the Samsung screens. So from a 22-inch screen through to a 95-inch screen, okay, out there. And typically, and I'll show you some case studies as we go forward of these technologies rolling out now, we're looking over 3 years of that being 50% cheaper in the purchase costs and the cost of running and management of that network than a traditional external PC-based digital signage network. Okay, so again, it's about getting that ROI, talking to the customer and demonstrating how we can scale out networks using this technology. The other thing is, whilst it uses the internet, it does work offline. So the internet effectively is a transit. You know, we're using that to do the network connections. We're using that to actually synchronize the content and bring it down to the screen, bring in dynamic HTML5 pages for menu boards and all those other nice things. And it will work and replicate everything we could do on a PC previously. You notice I've spoken a lot about Samsung because they were first to the marketplace. Well, as you can imagine, you know, people are very quickly looking at this, and when this was first launched at ISE in Amsterdam back in 2013, the amount of photos and people hiding badges from other organizations looking at the Samsung solution ultimately resulted in what we see now, which is LG are just coming to the market with a range of WebOS-based technology. So it's mobile technology they acquired from Palm, and they've now built that in. Again, it's in their consumer, and now they've moved it into their commercial screens, and there'll be a full range available before the end of the year. And also the Sony Bravia screens, again, using the same platform they've got at home, which is an Opera web browser technology, can deliver the same functionality. So we're trying to give people that kind of agnostic choice. So you're not tied to any one technology, whether that be the media player or the actual screen technology that's out there, and let these guys fight it out in terms of bringing the prices down and making it affordable to the marketplace. The other big area of impact is Android. Predominantly hype, I would like to say, because I'd done a panel over in the US called Disrupted, and it was at the DSE, Digital Signage Expo, back in February. And one of the questions thrown out by us to the audience was how many people have looked at Android for digital signage, and pretty much about 90 people in the room, everyone's hands went up. And then the next question was how many people have successfully deployed more than a couple of devices, not one hand went up. Okay, and I think the thing is that people see Android as being, you know, this great free operating system that can work on low-cost ARM technology, system-on-chip technology, and create this stable environment. The reality is it's hard work, because as one of the guys on the panel at DSE said, is what they've done is they've taken a very robust platform in Linux and added all this extra functionality on top, which makes it unstable and allows you to install applications and do all sorts of things that you don't want to do in an environment where it's unattended, where it's connected to the internet and you just want it to work, and you want people to touch it for a touchscreen application. So we've seen a lot of our competitors kind of come to market with Android devices, which are basically consumer devices from the Far East that have been modified in some way, and they're crossing their fingers and hope they're going to work for the next 3 to 5 years without fault. We're not going to take that gamble, okay, as an organization. Not to say we're not embracing Android. One of the partnerships we have is with a company from Hungary who you may have heard of called Densian. Densian's background is that they produce in-car connectivity solutions. They were the first company to get the Apple logo on their product to say approved by Apple when car stereos didn't have the capability of plugging in your iPod and you wanted your music in your car. So they created all the bridge technology to do that and the cables you'd go and buy from the web or wherever you needed to. So I'm skipping ahead there. There we go. So what we did was when we were working with the Samsung proposition, we got talking to the guys at Dentsu, and they said, well, yeah, we can see how this is moving, we can see how Android's moving in, but we want to do something that's robust, that's built from literally the chip and the silicon up. And if you go to their factory in Plzeň in Hungary, you'll see one side of the factory is where they pour in the silicon, and the other side is where they finish the product. So everything is done in-house. There's not other than the physical chips coming out of the manufacturers, everything is built in their factory. And what they've done is they've created this little CPX1 device, which has got a HDMI connection, it's got a network connection, Wi-Fi, it's got a USB connection so you can add buttons and sensors and what have you to the device. And you're talking about this device being list price about 250 euros, okay? So significantly cheaper than a PC, and it's just built for good, solid, unattended use. You connect it to any screen that you require. So we're seeing a lot of organizations who maybe they don't necessarily want the smart screen technology, or they've got existing screens that they want to enable, looking at this kind of solution to complement what else they're doing. We're seeing hybrid networks out there with the different technologies. So certainly one to watch. And we see some other technologies coming through. The next generation of this, called the QPX, will actually have 4G capabilities built in as well. So you've actually got mobile communications as well built into the system. The other big area of kind of progress, I suppose, and change is HTML. We've had to work with HTML to deliver the solution for the Samsung panel. That's effectively a HTML5 player that talks nicely to the various bits in the Samsung panel. But at a content level, we're seeing some really interesting activity. There's an organisation in the UK called AdGen who've got a really nice HTML5 advertising solution with templates, and it's aimed at the SME, the pubs, the bars, what have you, that want to change that content, change a price, have a nice animated piece of content come through that will work on those Samsung panels or work on a Dentian device. We're seeing other organisations, another company called Neuronet in Canada who we're working with, who've got a great platform for responsive adverts. So they started off by building the technology to serve kind of web banners. So it didn't matter whether you had a skyscraper or a top banner in a website, it would optimise the content based on that. So that the same can apply now for signage. So it doesn't matter whether you've got a 4x3 old screen or a portrait or a landscape, you just put the content in there, choose where the key focal points, and it will work out how to deliver that content to the screen, which is really innovative. So we're seeing a big kind of change in terms of what's happening with HTML5, both in terms of content creation and bringing that content in and dynamic menu boards, etc., but also down in terms of the playback technology. Okay, so as I said about the Samsung screen, is effectively a HTML browser with us taking control of that environment. And the kind of full progression of this is you started, it's a bit of a delay. Stay. Good. You're starting to see kind of interesting devices come to the market. Everyone's probably seen the Chromecast and the publicity behind this. What people don't realise actually is over the last month, Google have actually opened up all their SDKs and the ability to program these devices. And actually in our office, we've now got our full application running on a Chromecast device. You're talking about a £30, €40 device that's now running the same solution that we'd have running on a £1,000 PC no more than 2 years ago. So it's getting more and more affordable. Would I recommend this for fully unattended use? Not at all. Not at all. I'm not advocating that at all, but it's the point that there will be markets opening up for this type of technology, which effectively will be digital signage, okay, where previously maybe someone would have looked at traditional signage. This is an area that, again, we focused on. We're what we call ourselves an API-first company. So we've built our platform to effectively allow simple integration with third parties. Okay, because we're pretty comfortable with what we do. I always kind of, people say, well, what do you do? And I say, well, we're kind of FedEx for digital media. That's what we do. We just ship it around everywhere, okay? There's a bit of content creation in there, but it's not particularly sophisticated. And there's some nice device management on the other end. But ours is about, we're just logistics. We're the pipes. We just move the content around the place. And the way that we really leverage that platform is by integrating with other organizations to deliver a kind of holistic solution. One of the things we've just done recently is we've just launched for free within our platform integration with Avery, and Avery is an online image editing tool. So if anyone's ever looked at kind of Instagram or played around with trying to change your photos on your Twitter app and put nice borders and what have you on them, it's the same level of functionality, but it's now built into our software. And that was just by us looking at their API. We didn't even have to speak to them. Just looked at their API, how do we integrate that in? How do we make it open up images already in Signage Live or publish images back in, change information on there, and we just built it into the solution. And that's by having this kind of API strategy. And that extends further when you start looking at online video editing. and we've got a couple of platforms that we'll be launching integration with soon. One is free, one's going to be paid for. Syndicated content. We've got an internal integration within our software with screenfeed.com. Screenfeed provide news, sports, weather information, right to the point where it's fully integrated. So if you put the either the postcode, zip code of the player into Signage Live, and if you don't, it will use the IP address and do a lookup. It will deliver the right weather to that right screen. Okay, it's fully integrated right the way through. So you're not having to do any programming. You're just saying, I want that type of content, and we take care of the rest of it using the technology. Okay. The other big thing about the API-first strategy is that it allows us to look at workflow management. It allows us to look at where does data currently exist. So we work with a lot of big print service organizations who already have that data somewhere, and they're using that to print variable data, posters, print, etc., for their customers. And they don't want to be transposing that information into our platform and uploading files and what have you. They want the ability to actually just say, right, go grab it, agree the template, and push it to the screen. Okay. An example of that is as a estate agents, a high-end estate agents in the UK called Savills, who've got 80 locations. They've got about 450 locations around the world that we're now working with. And Savills approached us. They'd gone and bought a digital signage system, which was a PC-based solution, and then we're like, there you go, off you go and create your content. They're like, well, that isn't really what we want. How do we just kind of carry on with doing our day job? We're not actually running a digital signage network. We want the output from that content. So what we did is we started talking to them about, firstly, moving all their devices over to Signage Live, which we did. But secondly, then, how do they get their current data in? How do they produce and manage the data about the properties? And there's several kind of large organisations in the UK who control that data and provide those services. And the company we've partnered with specifically for Savills is Repit.com. And Repit, basically, they sell a solution which is about the estate agent managing the property, the pricing, all the geographical information, all the images they're going to take of your property when you're selling it. And then that gets printed, so they can hand out the brochures to those walking in, and it gets published to the website. Well, we've just taken that same web API and turned it and published it into the screens. Not only that, we're actually publishing it into different sizes and formats because we know they've got different resolutions of screens that are attached to the network. So, and this is all geo-based as well. So the player says, I'm in Kensington in London, and it'll go and grab the appropriate content and put it in the window in London. If they've got different windows, which they have in some cases, where they've actually got different price brackets, okay, and it's more likely to be like 1 million to 3 and 3 to 5 at somewhere like Kensington, then what it'll do is if they drop the price changes. Because it's in a feed, it automatically flips from window to window without any intervention. If it's sale agreed, slap goes over the sale agreed graphic on the screen. So it's just a really good example of what would have been, frankly, a very laborious manual process of changing this. And don't get me wrong, there's some amazing edge-lit. We've got a Cheffins estate agents in our town in Saffron Walden that have done a beautiful window with some really nice new edge-lit graphics and acetates and what have you. And it looks amazing, but they've still got to go and change those and print those and do everything else. So this just gives another alternative solution for that. And the resulting, a little bit washed out on this screen, but these are the kind of some of the snapshots of the resulting images that we've got in the window in some of the stores. They're also delivering those to some little 10-inch screens as well, where they've got the arrays in there. So again, it's just fully serviced, the whole thing from one data set, everything gets delivered to all of these different screen technologies. The other area that we touched on briefly in the session before is local data. Okay, so whether that be mobile, iBeacon, Estimo, all these other Bluetooth light technologies that are coming into play. And we're working on quite a few projects now with third-party organizations where, publishing digital media has always been relatively easy. To get the right piece of media with the right data on the right screen at the right time, as they say. The challenge then is how do you react to the local environment? How do you react to changes that are happening at that local proximity? So whether it be an EPOS seal that says, I haven't got that in stock, don't show it on the screen, or someone walking in that's actually shown interest in a particular offer that's been pushed to their Estimo-enabled screen or their iBeacon-enabled iPhone. And so we're working on actually how do we build those sensory information in, how do we work on triggers. And even some of the simple stuff is quite effective. We've done a project recently with a hotel chain where we're using sonic sensors, okay? And these sonic sensors are triggered based on the proximity of someone to the screen. So as you're further away, the copy's larger, and as you get closer, it gets smaller and you get more information. Very simple, but it's a really cool way of using technology to deliver an optimal solution for signage. Okay. So we can see a big impact in terms of this data, and it's something that Sophie covered in the previous session as well, is that it's creating this kind of holistic mobile and screen-based solution for our customers. The big challenge is everyone talks about big data, and obviously the more devices that we connect, the more data we collect, and we've got to make sense of it. Okay, and that's the real challenge. And I think this is what you're seeing if you read about big data and the general kind of noise that's been kind of propagated by the tech press. Everyone's going, yeah, we can do this, we can store zillions of bits of data, and we can do it. And they say, well, what do you do with that data? How do you make sense of that? How do you act upon that data? And so some of the things we're actually really interested in looking at is how we can analyze and store and actually provide meaningful information back to our customers. And we're working on a project with the Amazon Kinesis platform. Now, this platform basically is what they call a fire hose strategy. So the idea is you just buy as much data space as you want and just throw it at them. Okay. So their claim is they can take over 100 terabytes of data an hour from over 1 million connected devices. Okay, and no one's broken it yet. So the idea is we can connect all of this information up, bring it all back into the system, take all the audience measurement information, everything we're gathering, put it into something like the Kinesis platform, and it allows you to either do real-time dashboards, so you can actually see what's happening in real time in your estate, or to actually kind of take that data, store it temporarily, analyze it, and then decide you're going to change the content based on what's been happened in the environment itself. So the whole thing becomes a web-connected technology, and none of this kind of machine process where you've got to print something, put it in a tube, get it on a lorry, get it to the store. It can actually happen based on what's happening in the environment at any one time. So really, you can keep an eye out for Kinesis and these kind of technologies, and well worth Googling that and having a look at the video. It just gives you an insight. It's kind of a little snapshot from the video, how they're actually grabbing that data and allowing people to make sense of it. So I just wanted to finish off with a couple of case studies. And I highlighted this one. This is a recent case study. There's been a lot of press in the UK about Superdrug and their new store formats. And the thing that's really interesting for me on this, and we've got over 100 retailers in the UK that one way or another use Signage Live. This is interesting because we were involved in the store concept with their print design company. Okay, so this wasn't an AV company that wheeled in there and said, hey, I can sell you a screen on the wall after the store's been built. It wasn't the experiential company who'd done the journey. This was the company who were originally going to provide the printing solution and still provide the print solution for them, who said, we want to do this for you, we want to work with you. And it's because they've embraced the technologies that we've spoken about that they're able to do this now. So we've now got, there's 15 stores rolling out, and the key thing about this is they've replaced all the print with digital posters. Okay. So other than, as we said, there's a need for the vinyl, some beautiful signage, general signage there. Anything that's actually tactical, strategical, is actually been delivered now using digital technology. And that includes small screens on gondola ends, Android tablets, in-window screens, and also these information boards in the consulting areas. Okay, so it's a really, really kind of good example of how digital is becoming more integrated into signage needs. It's just another example as well of something on a more kind of practical level. We've got 40 hospitals in the London area in the UK that currently run digital signage using our platform. And the company behind it is a company called Healthcare Messaging Group, who are one of our partners. Their original business model was to basically work with the heads of the trusts, get their confidence, get a nice letter out to the partners who they work with, so Johnson & Johnson, Initial Services, these kind of organisations, and get those guys to actually sponsor the screens. So before the screens went on the wall, they already had the revenues covered to actually cover the cost of the deployment, and then they'd split the revenues and provide that money back to the hospital. Great in theory. Made a stack of money, okay, on the first few hospitals, especially the big ones in London. Massive appetite from the likes of Initial Services and Johnson & Johnson to continue to sponsor. The challenge was they couldn't actually give them that lovely check moment where they hand a check back and shake hands and have a photo opportunity, because if they gave it back to the hospital, it comes out of their budget for next year. So they said, well, can we just turn it into a token scheme and we'll use it on other signage solutions? So they've done an analysis of the hospital, and they've now started to use digital signage within the core corridors, within the staff rooms, even in the nursing stations. Now they're using this to actually keep the nurses on message as to what's happening. The public facing stuff is about how wonderful they are about you not catching MRSA and etc. But the nice thing is it's not overtly advertising. It's kind of brought to you by, so you'll find a little logo on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, and that's all the advertiser gets. Okay, it's very, very subtle. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of a journey in terms of what we're doing. I think I stayed on track. Yeah, just about, actually. It's not bad. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that you've got.